Good evening, guys. Give you some notes here on law of sines. We talked about law of cosines in class today. So we're going to do law of sines tomorrow. I really think law of sines is a little bit easier than law of cosines, but you can decide for yourself once I go through a couple examples with you here. As we talked about today in class, the law of cosines, we'll use that when we have two types of triangles, when we have our side, 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 and our side, angle, side types of triangles. Remember one thing that we pointed out when we looked at all these, that all of our letters were different here. So when we looked at our given information for today, when you're given all three sides, that would be a lowercase ABC, for example, or side, angle, side, you'd be given two sides of one angle, but all of the letters would be different, no matter whether they're capital or lowercase. So when we look the sine of capital A over lowercase a, that is equivalent to saying the sine of capital B over lowercase b, which is equivalent to saying the sine of capital C over lowercase c. Now, I won't use all three of these at the same time, but I will use two of these, and it's a proportion. And once you have a proportion, then we can just solve for whatever the missing variable is. So in this problem here, I'm just going to solve for capital or lowercase a to start with. So when I set this up, and again I'm solving for lowercase a here, when I set this up, I'm going to say, okay, the sine of capital A, which is 78 degrees, sine of 78, over lowercase a is equivalent to, now I want to use the b's because I know capital B and lowercase b. So I'm going to say sine of 64 over 9. And now when I go to solve this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cross multiply. So I'm going to take sine of 78 times 9. So that's going to leave me with 9 sine of 78. And then a times sine of 64 is just a sine 64. And then we divide both sides by the sine of 64. And over here they're going to cancel. And in my calculator what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in, make sure I'm in degree mode, which I am. I'm just going to type in 9 sine of 78 divided by the sine of 64. And that gives me 9.79, which I'm going to round to 9.8. So that comes out to be 9.8. So my answer for letter A up here is 9.8 feet. Okay? Now, if I want to find lowercase c now, because I have to solve the triangle, I'm going to do the exact same thing, except instead of using sine 78 over a, I'm going to use sine of 38 over c. And I'm still going to use b, sine 64 over 9. Now, I could have went back and used a, sine of 78 over 9.8, but I just like doing it the same way because it all works out. So here, if I cross multiply again, I have 9 sine of 38 equals c sine of 64. Still going to divide by the sine of 64. They cancel here. And again, if I take my calculator and I go 9 sine 38 this time, divided by sine 64, I get 6.2. And so C turns out to be 6.2 feet. And that's your law of sines right there. Okay, pretty basic. All right. So let me just show you this one real quick here. Example 2. Triangle ABC, a lowercase a is 8, capital B is 64, capital C is 38. So here's a case where we're given 3 pieces of information. All of them are different. We've given a B, a C, and an A. But I can find capital A very quickly simply by taking 180 minus 64 minus 38, just like we did in the previous problem. And it actually turns out that we get the same exact answer, 78 degrees. Okay, so that would be 78 there. And now I have capital A and lowercase a. So I can go directly to my law of sines, which I'm going to do here. And I'm going to find lowercase b to start with. So I'm going to go sine 78 over 8 equals sine 64 over b. Cross multiply here again, just like we were doing before. Okay, and I'm going to divide by the sine of 78. Okay, just like we've been doing in all the problems here. And so I take 8 sine 64 divided by the sine of 78, and that gives me 7.35. So my answer here is 7.35 meters, and that becomes my answer here. And now I'm going to take the exact same problem, and I'm going to do it again for lowercase c. And again, I'm going to go sine 78 over 8 equals, this time I'm going to go sine 38 over c, cross multiply, divide by the sine of 78, and we get 8 sine 38 divided by sine 78, 5. We can go 04 there since there was a 0. So 5.04 meters for C. There's your law of sines. See you guys in class tomorrow.